Welcome to News 9. You are watching On Point with me. In today's edition, we have two on points. The Economist names Bangladesh country of the year despite rising violence against Hindus, economic crisis, and a shift towards Islamism. Manipur Chief Minister Biren Singh says new police recruits from both Kuki and Meitei community will serve together in the state. But first, headlines. Police grills actor Allu Arjun for over 4 hours in Sandhya theatre stampede case. Sheikh Hasina's son Sajib Wazeh accuses Yunus government of launching witch hunt against former Prime Minister. Forensic report raises doubts on crime scene in Arjika rape and murder. Doctors intensify protests in Kolkata. Rejig in Karnataka Congress Working Committee soon. Speculations over DK Shivkumar's successor. Kerala Orthodox Church priest slams BJP's Christmas event amid Palakkad incident. Greenland Prime Minister reiterates we are not for sale after Trump suggests American ownership. Congress moves Supreme Court against recent amendments to election rules. Tirumala Temple in Tirupati is set to boost pilgrim service with AI, chatbot and automation. And cold wave continues unabated in Kashmir. Srinagar freezes at minus 6.6 degrees Celsius. In On Point 1, we'll talk about Bangladesh and the position that the Western press takes. Bangladesh has no formal government and nor one can expect it for another year. It is run by an interim setup that was supposed to conduct elections within 3 to 6 months. The country has undergone a profound, I would say, sea change. Attacks on Hindus have increased. Government has buckled under Islamic radicalism. Dhaka has made a strong outreach to Pakistan, which was complicit in killing thousands of Bengalis before 1971, before liberation war of Bangladesh. The Economist, the magazine, has named Bangladesh country of the year. The UK-based publication selected Bangladesh for ousting a despot and making a transition to an interim government led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. According to The Economist, their annual recognition prioritizes countries that have shown most improvement over the past 12 months rather than the wealthiest, happiest, or most virtuous. They praised the recent power transition as a positive step towards democracy. This view ignores the troubling realities on the ground. First, the argument that The Economist makes. Dhaka showed most improvement in last 1 year, says Economist. Bangladesh overthrew an autocrat, quote unquote. They moved towards liberal governance. Sheikh Hasina ousted after 15 years. Her rule saw election rigging, repression and corruption. Transition relatively peaceful despite Bangladesh's violent political history. A promising transition under Yunus. Yunus-led government supported by students, civil society and businessmen. And ninth, interim government restored order and stabilized the economy. Now, arguments against economists which I make. They have downplayed Islamism. Economist ignores human rights violations. Economist underplays violence against Hindus and other minorities. It was not a peaceful regime change. It's not Sri Lanka. Public took control of government. It's mobocracy. There are vested interests there. Yunus government failed to organize elections in time. In fact, it has used the High Court to give them more time to stay in power till 2026. Bangladesh on verge of economic collapse. Law and order has deteriorated. And it discredits liberation movement of 1971 when thousands of Bengalis were persecuted and killed, and Hindus especially. Someone should give them the copy of Blood Telegram. The legacy media outlet has overlooked widespread violence against Hindus. The persecution of indigenous people and other minorities, and an alarming clampdown on press freedom and journalists. Awami League leaders and supporters have been brutally targeted, with many killed in politically motivated attacks. Judges, educators and other professionals have been forced out of their roles, while students, once instrumental in powering the protests, are now managing law enforcement instead of attending classes. The mob is in control in Bangladesh. Bangladesh under Yunus is rewriting history. It is trying to ignore the roots of its freedom struggle. It is poor revisionism at best. The country is inching closer to a failed state called Pakistan. A country it fought against in 1971 with India's help to secure its freedom. Bangladesh is rewriting its constitution to erase secular character of the state and remake itself in the image of Pakistan. Despite the economists lauding the nation for choosing democracy over authoritarianism, the reality is different. Democracy remains dysfunctional. Interim government is postponing election. Now, they have the capacity or the mandate to organize either the elections late 2025 or early 2026. Whereas the job of the interim government was to only conduct the election. The law and order situation has deteriorated, and the transition which began with the student-led protest is now suppressing Hindu protesters seeking their rights. In one glaring example, a Hindu priest, Chinmoy Das, was arrested for protesting and denied basic judicial rights such as access to bail or legal counsel. Economically, Bangladesh is in dire straits. Yes, it is. Real GDP growth has slowed to 5.2% in financial year 24, down from 5.8% the previous year, and is projected to decline further to 3.8% in financial year 25. Inflation, driven by surging food and energy prices, remains a pressing concern, averaging 9.7% in financial year 24. The garment industry, a cornerstone of Bangladesh's economy, has also suffered a significant blow. Now let me give you some facts. 2,200 incidents of violence against Hindus in Bangladesh since August 2024. Hindu priest Chinmoy Das falsely implicated, denied bail, legal counsel. Economic crisis in Bangladesh, declining GDP, rising inflation. Fact 4. Several attacks on journalists, judges and educators since August 2024. Indigenous communities like the Chakmas attacked in Chittagong Hill Tract. Now this brings me to the question: does it not expose the double standards of the Western press? Why is Western media downplaying violence against minorities? Why is the growing threat of Islamism in Bangladesh being ignored the way they ignored it in Afghanistan and Pakistan? And why has the Western press overlooked the economic crisis? And why is the Western legacy media underplaying human rights violation in Bangladesh? In essence, while Western legacy media commends Bangladesh for its so-called march towards democracy, the ground reality tells a different story. It is political chaos, persecution of Hindus, and rising extremism. I'm joined by Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat, Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risk Analysis Group. Madam, my question to you is, and I haven't gone into the second part of the story because the second country they are celebrating is Syria and the regime change. But I would restrict myself with both of you to Bangladesh. How do you explain this bias and the framework in which certain developments can be sold globally, madam?
Thank you so much for having this debate. In the first instance, Economist lost its credibility decades ago. Nobody reads The Economist, not even in the United States. They read the Washington Post. They don't read Economist. Economist suffers from what is called post-colonial hangover. Economist feels that it can dictate to South Asia and to former British colonies what is good and what is bad, and they fix their own standards and their own rules. One for themselves, that is to say, the West, particularly, they think they are still leading the West, United Kingdom. And on the other hand, for those of us ex-colonies, they think that we are dependent on them for a good conduct certificate from them. That's my first comment. Second, they have sunk to the depths of depravity by labeling Bangladesh as the country of the year. Bangladesh's prime minister was removed through an organized coup orchestrated by the American deep state and with the help of the Pakistani ISI. Today, as you rightly pointed out, Prabhu Chinmaya Das is not being given bail because no lawyer is being permitted to defend him. In other words, it means that there is no rule of law in Bangladesh, there is no free press in Bangladesh, there is no free judiciary in Bangladesh, its economy is in free fall, their people are desperate to come to India for medical treatment, their garment industry has been overtaken. If you look at figures, if you compare those figures with the figures from India and other countries, you'd find that the Indian garment industry has made a quantum jump because their garment industry is virtually shut down. Moreover, most of the raw material for the garments industry comes from India. The inflation that you're talking about, it's actually the figures are higher, much higher. And moreover, like in West Bengal, the Bangladeshis are completely dependent on a fish and rice diet. Their fish has become unaffordable because they've also stopped exporting their fish, which used to come mainly to India by daily flights to Delhi, to Bangalore, etc., direct flights. It's all stopped. So the point here is that since Muhammad Yunus has demonstrated that he is a greedy despot clinging to power and that he has promised under huge pressure and Trump's impending inauguration that he will have the elections in the first half of 2026, it means that he wants to cling to power through non-democratic means. Moreover, when he talks of people's power, where is the people's power? People's power is demonstrated through free and fair elections. If he was successful in holding free and fair elections, establishing rule of law, ensuring that there are no attacks on minorities, ensuring that the development which Sheikh Hasina had overseen through all her years of prime ministership continues, then they would have a minor chance in getting a mention in any credible international.
Ma'am, let me come to another point here. In the entire Western media, Islamophobia is very intensely debated. Suhas, it's very intensely debated. And in the discussions we have had, madam, you were there, and Suhas, every time we had a guest from Bangladesh, and I today took the decision not to go for it, is because, Hindus are being attacked because they sided with Sheikh Hasina. That's the argument. But the fact of the matter is, Hindus in general have been attacked with nothing to do with the power structure of Sheikh Hasina. Shopkeepers have been attacked, worshippers have been attacked, shoemakers have been attacked, or the Chakmas living in the Chittagong tract have been attacked, the tribals have been attacked. So, why is world failing to acknowledge that there is a bias which also exists against Hindus?
They are trying.
For this, madam, I'll come to you, Suhas.
Yeah. See, I think the award was given by some people who do not know how many districts are there in Bangladesh, how many upazilas are there, and they think they think Bangladesh is a composite unit, and they do not recognize the diversity of the country. And when you do not recognize the diversity of the country, then you have the tendency to overlook all the elements which you have mentioned. They have realized, forget about the attacks on the Chakmas and other tribals or the Hindus. They have failed to realize one particular fact. Whatever wrong was with Sheikh Hasina's government is being replicated by Muhammad Yunus. There is no judiciary because all the judges have been forced to resign, and there are thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who are being falsely prosecuted. The International War Crimes Tribunal, which you had condemned earlier, that is being justified. Show me one particular incident where Yunus seems to be better than Hasina, for which you are actually in a way recognizing as the country of the year. I mean, I would say on record that the performance of the Yunus government is actually worse than Hasina for only one reason. Hasina had ensured that there could not be any systematic attacks on minorities and indigenous peoples. She might not have done great things about these two communities, but she had at least ensured that rule of law prevails. And at this point of time, forget about the minorities and indigenous peoples. Nobody in the streets of Bangladesh, can enjoy the safety and security. It's a broken country. And if you realize this brokenness in the country, and if you still award it as the most, what's a valuable country, or the country which should be country of the year as per the economists, I think there's something wrong with it, because they do not know anything about Bangladesh. And it's very easy for us to say, they can always deny it, that, the country has not moved towards, Islamization. Those Islamizations can be proven only with specific judgments. So if you look at the judgments, all the terrorists who were convicted earlier by the courts, not only under Awami League, including under the BNP, they have all been released. And if you look at the case which took place about the arms trafficking, 10 trucks load which were being carried by the ULFA, and they were coming to India, it was in 2004. So at that point of time, it was the BNP which was in power, and it's the BNP which led the prosecution, which led the initial investigation, and etc. And you acquitted in such a manner at this point of time, couple of days back, as if Paresh Barua himself was carrying all the arms and ammunition, and there was no involvement of any Bangladeshi there. So this particular incident shows how the country has moved towards Islamization. And the last point is, why are you recognizing somebody who is not even has been given the mandate to carry out reforms? I think all the Western countries, all the Western donors and the economists, they think that reforms are being carried out by Yunus. Reforms for whom? Because the Jamaat Islamist reforms are different, BNP's reforms are different, the Awami League's reforms are different. And whatever reforms are being carried out, at the end of the day, he is an interim government. He has not been given the mandate, to carry out.
But there's also another aspect. Why is world not witnessing, absorbing the fact that Islamic radicals are being freed one by one? I just played a graphic. There were two graphics which I played. One gentleman was accused for trying to kill Sheikh Hasina, and he was part and parcel of that grenade assassination case. He was part and parcel of funding Huji. A former minister has been acquitted. Another gentleman has been acquitted who has been in thick with the ISI modules in Bangladesh. That graphic I also played. Abdul Salam Pintu. He has been released, and he funded terrorists from POK. And this is all happening because the courts are under tremendous stress from the so-called popular government. Ambassador Mukherjee, how come these issues are going unnoticed?
They are not going unnoticed. They are being ignored deliberately. Because They are playing the game which United States used to play in the Cold War, when they used to say our dictators versus their dictators. Our dictators are good guys, their dictators are bad guys. This is a deep state conspiracy. This is intended to destabilize India because we surround Bangladesh on three sides. And we have got, apart from other minorities there, we have 1.5 crore Hindus. And in 1971, the Pakistani army did not just kill Hindus, they killed Muslims. They killed whoever they could lay their hands on. So today, the same created Bangladesh, created with the help of India, is reaching out its hand of friendship to Pakistan, which has never apologized for the genocide and refuses to do so. That should be a matter of great concern to the people of Bangladesh, regardless of which party they come from. Instead of that, they are removing the photos of Sheikh Mujib from their banknotes. They are trying to question how it came into existence. But the point here is that it's not so easy to erase a nation's history. Bangladesh came into existence because its culture, language, and civilization was more important than their religion. And that started with the language movement when the West Pakistanis tried to remove Bengali from the curriculum and to put Urdu. That's where it all started. But in Bangladesh, even Muhammad Yunus reads the Quranic verses in Bengali and not in Arabic. He can't change it. A nation cannot change its history. The problem was that everything relating to their religion was done in Bengali, which was not acceptable to the then rulers of West Pakistan. Are you trying to tell me that within a period of 5 months, every single Bangladeshi has learned Urdu and is reciting the Quranic verses in Arabic? Not at all. You can't change that. This will settle down when they will have their elections. Things have to come back.
Madam, why has the protest acquired such a strong religious idiom? It just baffles me. Why has it acquired such strong religious idiom? It's not Egypt. It's not. There's no Muslim Brotherhood.
It has acquired a religious overtone only because Yunus is encouraging
Absolutely.
the Bangladeshis to ignore how Bangladesh was created. But as I said, you cannot delete a nation's history by pressing a button on the computer. It is there in your mind. How was it created? Where was the genocide? Who were the professors who were murdered in Dhaka University? How many women were raped and threw their unwanted children into mass graves? Those are not issues that can be ignored. It doesn't make any difference what Economist says or doesn't. It just fills me with complete contempt. But what is important is that the Jamaat cannot win a popular election. The students are not organized in a party. Even if they organize themselves in a party, in a free and fair election, it will be 50-50 between Awami League and BNP. It's not such a simple story. So I would say that we have to wait patiently, but be on our guard. Send a bigger military regiment to the huge India-Bangladesh border and Myanmar border, and just wait for things to stabilize, because we are a nation where the Ganges flows eternally, and that Ganges which flows through Bengal cannot be changed by diktat. I am a Bengali from Dhaka Bikrampur. It is not possible to erase history. And in a Bengali to a Bengali coming from Bengal, never. It's not possible.
But then, absolutely. But then Suhas, who are these people who are willing to overlook their history? As Ambassador Mukherjee said, who are willing to overlook the genocide committed by the Pakistani forces in 1971. Who are these forces? They are willing to erase their own language, own culture, own Bengaliness. How do we quantify them? How do we sociologically place them? Who are these people?
No, I don't think it's a sociological issue. It's a political issue. You have an unelected person. Please remember, he has a mindset of a Union Parishad Council chairman. The only problem is, I think the West thinks because he got the Nobel Prize, so he must be really a Nobel man, which he is not. And I always say one particular thing. You have to remember that he's a Sardar of the EMI agents. So that's his mentality, and that's the way he operated the Grameen Bank, the peer pressure and the way he, the Bandhan Bank style kind of a thing. So, he has a darker side, which most of the Nobel laureates do not have. I think we have to remember one particular thing. That is, when the anti-quota movement started, it was actually based on secularism. It was against any kind of discrimination. So that's why it was a Vaishamba Virodhi Chhatra Andolan. That's the anti-discrimination students movement. What had happened at that point of time is that the BNP and the Jamaats, they actually were suffocated. So they joined the students movement. It no longer remained a student movement, and it became a popular and people's movement. So the Jamaat-e-Islami elements started coming only after Yunus came to power. So the current scenario,
Yunus is strengthening the Jamaat?
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, he is actually being...
Or he is the Jamaat?
He's in league with Jamaats, and that's why, the most difficult political party at this point, the people who are walking the tightrope is the BNP, because if the BNP protests too much, then they are seen to be in Awami League and with India, and if they do not protest, then Jamaat-e-Islami is very happy with the kind of arrangement which the Yunus is making, and Yunus surrounded by all the Jamaat-e-Islami kind of leaders, who are advising him, who are taking their decisions, and who are dictating judgments, and etc. So everything is run by the Jamaat-e-Islami. So that's why I think, we have to understand one particular thing. There is a popular movement to erase this kind of, identities, or the Mujibur Rahman's picture and etc. People have not forgotten Awami League. Hasina may not be acceptable, but that doesn't mean that the Awami League is not acceptable. Awami League is still one of the most popular parties. It's just that they are not getting the freedom which they should have got if they're genuine democracy. So that's why I think we have to remember that, Yunus at the end of the day will fail. And I have one particular thing which I always repeat. Yunus and his advisors, if they are not able to improve the situation, which they cannot because of the mess which they have created, they shall have to flee the country. And unfortunately, they won't even have the flights to take them out of the country, and they still face violence. And
I'll quickly I'll quickly take a closing comment from Ambassador Mukherjee. Madam, why are you so confident that they cannot erase history when Islamism completely changed the complexion of Afghanistan post 1979, a sort of a heterogeneous identity which Afghans enjoyed, Pakhtuns in South, or the Hazaras, or the other communities? It completely changed with Taliban 1 and Taliban 2. Don't you think that this is possible in Bangladesh with more connected world?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Bangladesh is very different from Afghanistan. There is this whole issue of the West Pakistan contempt for the dark-skinned, fish-eating, lower caste converted Bengali, they think, who recites his Quranic verses in Bengali. That is never going to change. This is totally different from Afghanistan. It is a hub of culture and civilization. It has some of the most beautiful Sufi shrines in the world. It has the most beautiful Kali temple. It has huge Buddhist monasteries. It cannot be compared ever with the Afghans. And don't forget, the Afghans have a long history of standing up to invaders and annihilating them. They never allowed the British to conquer Afghanistan. Bangladesh is totally different. The India's social reform movement started in Dhaka Bikrampur, East Bengal, which was Hindu majority. And the entire cultural renaissance came from Bengal, United Bengal. So it can never be compared. That is why I'm saying they cannot erase their history, because their DNA is different from Afghanistan. But if it is allowed to descend into, as you said, mobocracy and law and order, it will become a failed state. If it becomes a failed state, that will be a huge headache for its biggest neighbor, India. Which is why it is imperative that the elections are held and law and order comes back to Bangladesh.
I don't know what's going to happen with Bangladesh, but definitely I would like to end my show on this optimistic note that Bangladesh is not Afghanistan. Thank you both of you for joining my show. So this was On Point 1, and my takeaway is that the Western press has used the clock of human rights and democracy to push forward the strategic interests of the West. They are part and parcel of it, which has led to breakdown of a number of states from West Asia to Northern Africa. So that's all on